Everyone thinks attraction begins with looks. It doesn't. Looks may get attention, but social skills decide whether attraction grows or disappears. You've probably met someone who wasn't the best looking person in the room, yet people naturally gravitated toward them. Women enjoyed talking to them. Conversations felt effortless. Their presence commanded respect without demanding it. Then you've probably met someone physically attractive who constantly struggled with dating because every interaction felt forced, needy, or uncomfortable. That's because attraction isn't built through appearance alone. It's built through how someone makes another person feel. The truth is this: most men spend years improving their body, their clothes, or their income while completely ignoring the one thing that creates emotional attraction, the way they communicate. Women don't simply respond to words. They respond to confidence, emotional control, curiosity, leadership, and authenticity that those words communicate. Social skill number 1, listen like you're discovering someone, not impressing them. Today, we're going to break down the 5 social skills that instantly make you more attractive, not because they manipulate people, but because they demonstrate qualities every emotionally healthy woman naturally looks for. One of the biggest mistakes men make in conversations with women is believing they need to constantly impress them. They think attraction comes from saying the smartest thing, telling the funniest story, or proving how successful they are. So they enter every interaction with one goal: perform well enough to earn attention. The problem is that this mindset shifts the entire focus of the conversation onto themselves. Instead of trying to understand the person in front of them, they're busy calculating what to say next. Women notice this far more quickly than most men realize because it changes the emotional atmosphere of the interaction. A conversation stops feeling natural and starts feeling like a presentation. The men who create the strongest connections usually do something very different. They become genuinely curious. They don't listen just long enough to respond. They listen to understand. They pay attention to the emotions behind someone's words instead of only hearing the facts. When a woman mentions something she enjoys, they don't immediately interrupt with a story about themselves. They ask what drew her to that interest, why it matters to her, or how it became part of her life. Those questions communicate something powerful. I'm interested in who you are, not just in how you make me feel. Psychologically, people are drawn toward those who make them feel seen. Most individuals spend their day waiting for someone to truly pay attention without judgment or interruption. When someone feels understood, their emotional defenses naturally begin to lower. They become more open, more expressive, and more comfortable. Attraction often grows inside that sense of emotional comfort because people remember how someone made them feel far longer than they remember the exact words that were spoken. This doesn't mean pretending to be interested or using questions as a technique. People can usually sense when curiosity is forced. Genuine listening comes from believing that every person has experiences, perspectives, and stories worth discovering. That mindset changes your body language, your eye contact, your patience, and the way you respond. Instead of searching for the next opportunity to talk about yourself, you begin noticing details that most people overlook. You remember small things from previous conversations, and when those details naturally come up later, they show that your attention was real rather than performative. The irony is that the less you focus on appearing impressive, the more memorable you become. People rarely leave a conversation thinking about every clever sentence you said, but they almost always remember whether they felt respected, heard, and emotionally understood. The man who makes a woman feel comfortable expressing herself creates a stronger impression than the man who spends the entire conversation trying to prove his own value. Because real confidence isn't measured by how much attention you attract to yourself, but by how much presence you're willing to give to someone else. Social skill number 2, stay calm. When the conversation gets uncomfortable. Most people believe confidence is revealed when a conversation is flowing effortlessly. In reality, confidence becomes most visible when things stop feeling comfortable. An awkward silence, a disagreement, a misunderstood joke, or a difficult question can completely change the energy of an interaction. These moments often expose the difference between someone who is emotionally secure and someone who depends on constant approval. Women are usually paying close attention to how a man responds when a conversation becomes uncertain, because those reactions reveal far more about his character than anything he says when everything is going smoothly. Many men become uncomfortable the moment silence appears. They rush to fill every pause because they assume silence means they've failed or that the other person has lost interest. They begin talking faster, telling unnecessary stories, asking random questions, or explaining themselves far more than the situation requires. Instead of allowing the conversation to breathe, they try to force it back into motion. Ironically, this creates even more tension because the conversation starts feeling pressured rather than natural. What could have been a harmless pause becomes an obvious display of nervousness. Emotionally grounded men respond very differently. They understand that silence is not the enemy. Every meaningful conversation has moments where both people are simply thinking, observing, or processing what has been said. They don't panic because they don't measure their worth by how entertaining they appear every second. Their calmness sends a powerful message. They are comfortable with themselves regardless of how the conversation unfolds. That emotional stability naturally makes other people feel more relaxed as well. The same principle applies during disagreements. Many people hear a different opinion and immediately become defensive because they interpret disagreement as rejection. They begin arguing to protect their ego instead of trying to understand another perspective. A confident man doesn't need every conversation to end with him being right. He can respectfully disagree without becoming hostile or emotionally reactive. He listens first, responds thoughtfully, and stays composed even when opinions differ. This demonstrates maturity, emotional intelligence, and self-control, qualities that are consistently attractive because they signal someone who can handle challenges without losing balance. Real-life relationships are full of uncomfortable conversations. There will be misunderstandings, moments of frustration, difficult decisions, and emotional discussions that cannot be avoided. The way someone handles small moments of discomfort often predicts how they will handle much larger challenges in the future. When a woman sees that you remain patient, composed, and respectful under pressure, she begins to associate your presence with emotional safety instead of emotional chaos. That feeling is difficult to fake because it comes from genuine inner confidence rather than rehearsed techniques or carefully chosen words. True confidence is not about controlling every conversation. It is about controlling your own emotions when the conversation refuses to go exactly as planned. Social skill number 3, speak with clarity instead of seeking approval. One of the fastest ways to weaken your presence in a conversation is to constantly seek approval before expressing yourself. Many men don't even realize they're doing it because it has become a habit. They soften every opinion with phrases like, "I could be wrong," "this might sound stupid," or "maybe it's just me." While humility is a valuable trait, there is a difference between being open-minded and being afraid to stand behind your own thoughts. When every sentence sounds like a request for permission, it communicates uncertainty rather than confidence. Women are often less interested in whether you always have the right answer and more interested in whether you trust yourself enough to speak honestly. Seeking approval usually comes from the fear of rejection. People worry that if they express a genuine opinion, they might be judged, criticized, or disliked. As a result, they begin shaping every response around what they think the other person wants to hear. Instead of communicating authentically, they become highly agreeable, constantly adjusting their personality to avoid conflict. The problem is that this behavior makes conversations feel predictable and emotionally flat. It becomes difficult for anyone to build attraction towards someone who seems disconnected from their own identity. Speaking with clarity doesn't mean becoming loud, stubborn, or argumentative. It means expressing your thoughts in a direct and respectful way without feeling the need to apologize for having them. If you enjoy something, say it with confidence. If you disagree with an opinion, explain your perspective calmly without trying to win an argument. If you don't like something, communicate it honestly instead of pretending just to keep the other person happy. This kind of communication reflects emotional security because it shows that your self-worth isn't dependent on constant agreement or validation. Women often find this attractive because clear communication creates emotional stability. When someone consistently says what they mean and means what they say, they become easier to trust. There is no guessing, no mixed signals, and no hidden agenda. That consistency makes interactions feel genuine rather than performative. A man who can communicate directly without becoming defensive or aggressive demonstrates that he values honesty more than approval, and that level of confidence naturally earns respect. Real confidence also includes the ability to listen to different viewpoints without feeling threatened. You don't have to convince everyone that you're right, nor do you need every conversation to end in agreement. Emotionally mature people understand that two intelligent individuals can see the same situation differently. They are comfortable allowing others to have their opinions while remaining grounded in their own. When you stop speaking to be liked and start speaking to express who you truly are, your words carry more weight because they come from conviction instead of insecurity. And people are naturally drawn to those whose confidence comes from within rather than from the reactions of those around them. Social skill number 4, make people feel comfortable, not evaluated. One of the most overlooked social skills is the ability to make people feel comfortable in your presence. Many men assume attraction comes from proving how intelligent, successful, or knowledgeable they are, so they unintentionally turn conversations into subtle competitions. They correct small mistakes, challenge every opinion, interrupt to share a better story, or constantly try to demonstrate that they know more. While they believe they're creating a strong impression, the opposite often happens. The conversation begins to feel like a test instead of a genuine connection. Women don't usually enjoy interactions where they feel they are constantly being judged, analyzed, or measured. Think about the people you naturally enjoy spending time with. They probably aren't the ones who make you feel like you have to choose every word carefully. They're the ones who allow you to relax. Around them, you don't feel pressure to impress anyone because they create an atmosphere of acceptance rather than evaluation. That emotional comfort is incredibly powerful because people instinctively want to return to environments where they feel safe being themselves. This doesn't mean agreeing with everything someone says or pretending to like every opinion. It means responding with curiosity before criticism. If a woman shares an experience you don't fully understand, ask questions before making assumptions. If she has a different perspective, don't immediately search for flaws in her thinking. Let her finish speaking without interrupting simply because you have something interesting to add. Small habits like maintaining patient eye contact, giving your full attention, and allowing pauses before responding communicate respect in ways that words alone cannot. Psychologically, people become more open when they don't feel threatened. The human mind naturally becomes defensive when it senses judgment, but it becomes expressive when it senses acceptance. That is why emotionally intelligent people often have deeper conversations. They create an environment where honesty feels easier than self-protection. Women notice this because emotional safety is one of the strongest foundations of genuine attraction. It's difficult to connect with someone if every conversation feels like you're being evaluated instead of understood. Another important part of making people comfortable is resisting the urge to constantly bring the conversation back to yourself. Some people listen only long enough to tell a similar story about their own life. While sharing personal experiences can build connection, doing it too often shifts the focus away from the other person. Attractive communicators know when to speak and when to simply let someone be heard. They understand that giving another person space to express themselves is not a sign of weakness, but a sign of confidence. When your presence makes people feel relaxed instead of pressured, conversations become more natural, trust develops more quickly, and attraction has room to grow because people are drawn toward those who make them feel accepted rather than those who constantly make them feel like they have something to prove. Social skill number 5, have a life that doesn't revolve around her. One of the most attractive qualities a man can develop has very little to do with what he says during a conversation. It has everything to do with the life he has built outside of it. Many men unknowingly make the mistake of placing a woman at the center of their world the moment they become interested in her. Their schedule begins to revolve around her availability, their mood depends on her responses, and their sense of happiness rises or falls based on how much attention they receive. While this may feel like love or commitment, it often creates emotional pressure that slowly weakens attraction instead of strengthening it. Healthy attraction grows when two people have complete lives that complement each other, not when one person expects the relationship to become their entire identity. A man who has meaningful goals, close friendships, hobbies, personal ambitions, and responsibilities communicates something powerful without ever saying it. He demonstrates that his life already has direction and purpose. A relationship becomes an important part of that life, but it is not the only thing giving his life meaning. That balance is attractive because it reflects emotional maturity and self-sufficiency. Neediness is rarely about caring too much for someone. More often, it comes from relying on one person to meet every emotional need. When that happens, small situations become much bigger than they should be. A delayed text feels like rejection. A cancelled plan feels like abandonment. A disagreement feels like the relationship is falling apart. Instead of enjoying the connection, the relationship becomes filled with anxiety because too much emotional weight has been placed on one person. Women often sense this pressure, and while they may appreciate being valued, they usually do not want the responsibility of becoming someone else's entire emotional world. Men who maintain fulfilling lives outside of dating naturally communicate confidence through their actions. They don't disappear from their responsibilities whenever someone new enters their life. They continue pursuing their career, improving their health, spending time with family and friends, and investing in personal growth. This doesn't make them distant or unavailable. It makes them emotionally balanced. Their attention becomes valuable because it is given intentionally rather than out of desperation. Having your own purpose also changes the way you communicate. You stop chasing constant reassurance because your confidence no longer depends on another person's approval. You become more patient, less reactive, and more capable of respecting another person's space because you have meaningful ways to spend your own time. Conversations become lighter, interactions become more genuine, and relationships develop naturally without unnecessary pressure. Women are often drawn to men who clearly enjoy their own lives because that kind of independence signals strength, stability, and emotional security, showing that they are choosing to share their life with someone rather than searching for someone to complete the life they haven't built for themselves. The most attractive man isn't the one who tries the hardest to be liked. He's the one who continues growing, communicating with confidence, and respecting both himself and others. Build your character before you chase connection, because lasting attraction begins with emotional strength. If this message gave you a new perspective, keep investing in yourself and let your actions become your greatest source of confidence.